Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about PIL. So we look at the concept, its legal position, the impact it has, and some of the cases. Now PIL has been in news a lot lately, especially there have been so many PILs filed in the courts due to the current pandemic situation. So that makes it important. First of all, let's understand what is PIL. PIL stands for Public Interest Litigation. Now, if you rephrase it, it would simply mean a litigation for public interest. Litigation is nothing but a court case. So let's look at the definition. It is a litigation not by the aggrieved party. What is the significance of not by the aggrieved party? Now, in judiciary, there's a concept of locus standi. What this means is that the person who is aggrieved, the person who has been wronged, has the right to approach the court to get the relief. Now, a third party cannot approach on their behalf. The person who has been wronged, they should approach the court. So the PIL dilutes this. So it is a litigation not by the aggrieved party, but by the court itself. So that means the court can take the issue by themselves or by any other private party. So, or a third person. Third person can be a private party, just an individual or an NGO. Okay, so this is the complete definition. Now, the significance of dilution of this locus standi principle is that in a country like India, where there are so many socially and economically disadvantaged citizens who don't have resources to fight for their rights, PIL gives them an avenue. So let's look at the recent plight of the migrating workers. They don't have resources to fight lengthy court cases. They don't have time, they don't have money, they don't have expertise. They can't hire a lawyer. So, but an NGO on their behalf or a private individual on their behalf can definitely approach the court because it is a matter of public concern. So this private party can approach the court to ensure that these migrant laborers are given some sort of relief. Similarly, under trials who were in prison for a period longer than even what their prison sentence would have been, they couldn't approach court, but a third party on their behalf approached the court and got them relief. The court ordered their release. Okay, so this is the significance of PIL. Similarly, a PIL for environmental concern. So this can relate to river pollution. There have been many environmental cases in Supreme Court and High Court which are PIL and which have got very positive judgment from these courts. Issues of rights violation. So this can include matters like bonded labor, forced labor, child labor, right to food, right to health. Again, social exploitation. Again, you can link it with rights violation, so like bonded labor. So the first reported case of PIL is the Hussainera Khatun versus State of Bihar in 1979. So this was the case I was talking about, where under trials got relief and Supreme Court stated that the right to speedy justice is a right available to the people. Because remember this catchphrase as well, justice delayed is justice denied. So in this case, obviously the under trials didn't approach the court, but a private person who read an article in news, they approached the court and they got relief for these under trials, and Supreme Court ordered the release of these under trials. However, before Hussainera Khatun case, there was a case in Mumbai. I think it was by the Mumbai Kamgar Sabha. So in that case, the workers, they were the aggrieved. So the workers were aggrieved, but they didn't have enough resources to file the case against the merchant union. So however, the workers union, it filed the case. Now, it was argued that the union is not the party to the case, it's the worker. But Supreme Court, Justice Iyer, he said that the union, since it represents the worker, it has legitimate concern and it can be a party to this case. So many scholars, they consider this Mumbai Kamgar Sabha case as the case where the seed of PIL was sown in India. Okay, so the case is known as Mumbai Kamgar Sabha versus Abdul Bhai and others. Now, after Mumbai Kamgar Sabha and Hasanara Khatun case, another major landmark case where the idea of PIL was built is known as SP Gupta case. So in this case, Justice P.N. Bhagwati, he gave a judgment which strengthened the position of PIL. So you would also know SP Gupta case as the first judge's case, and I've talked about it in the video Supreme Court and RTI issue. However, the main crux of this case was, so PIL was filed, or PIL is also sometimes referred to as writ petition. So writ petition was filed against the government that we want to know the correspondence of the CJI and the law minister regarding the appointment of certain judges. Now, government rejected it. However, Supreme Court said that we are talking about openness, and for openness and accountability, it is necessary that public knows it. So that's why the Supreme Court upheld the request and asked the government to release the correspondence between the law minister and the Chief Justice. So in this case, Justice P.N. Bhagwati gave certain points as to in which cases PIL can be filed and when it cannot be filed. So if there's a disadvantaged section of people involved for whom access to justice is difficult, in that case PIL can be filed. If there's an issue of environmental concern which affects a large group of people, we can file a PIL. Third would be in matters of exploitation or matters of neglected children. So there are a variety of matters which can be brought in by PIL. Another thing to note here is that why did the cases of PIL, they started in the decades of 70s and 80s. So this Mumbai Kamgar Sabha case that I mentioned was also in 1976 or 77. So one of the key reasons behind is that you would know that emergency in India was declared in 1975. During the emergency, a lot of government excess happened. So free speech was curbed, people were put to jail without trial. So that definitely contributed to the rise of PIL. Another thing is, it was during 1974 when the idea of environmental concerns, sustainable development started coming to forefront. So issues of environmental concern also dominated this rise of PIL. Again, you would have heard of Bhopal gas tragedy, oleum leaks. So these were the environmental issues that kept cropping up. Now let's look at the legal position of PIL. So Article 32 empowers the Supreme Court and Article 226 empowers the High Court. Now can you tell me what Article 32 and 226 deal with? So both these articles talk about enforcement of fundamental rights, the 5 writs that are given to enforce the fundamental rights. Okay. Now the Supreme Court said that for a PIL to be valid, it must not have any oblique motive. What is oblique motive? Oblique motive is that it shouldn't have any vested interest, like it is saying one thing and it is doing another. PIL should be filed to ensure that public interest is upheld. The private party should be acting bona fide. The private party should have no private motive, that is, it should be in public good. There shouldn't be any political objective. So many a time people file PIL to gain popularity so that they can use the PIL to launch their public and political career. So this should not be the motive of PIL. There's a 3-page guidelines issued by Supreme Court which is available on their website for PIL. Now, interestingly, there's a section in CRPC, and that is section 133. It gives power to the magistrate to address some issue in local scenario. So let's say in front of your house a person started selling meat. Let's say you accept that. But what if they are not disposing of the dead parts or the unusable parts in a hygienic manner? They are throwing it on the road. That is a public concern. It would mean that it can lead to a health crisis in that neighborhood. Similarly, let's say there's a tree in someone else's residence, but that tree is now in a condition where it might fall on anyone who is passing on the road. So again, this is a public concern because it can cause injury to a person. In these cases, the district magistrate under section 133 has the power to use their own discretion. These are not exactly PIL, but yes, in matter of public importance, like said, health in the local neighborhood or to prevent injury to anyone walking on the road, a third person can definitely approach them for redressal for such cases. Now coming to the impact of PIL. So as I said earlier, the idea of locus standi has been diluted by PIL. I explained what is locus standi and I explained the significance of the dilution of locus standi. Another big impact is judicial activism. What is judicial activism? Judicial activism means when judiciary is actively taking part in ensuring that the rights of citizens are protected. So, like I said, in case of, let's say, the COVID pandemic, the Supreme Court did give some favorable judgments and direct the government to ensure that the migrants who were fleeing from the places they were working to their hometown, they don't encounter situation like hunger or later loss of livelihood. So the Supreme Court actively took a step. Another issue is, I'll talk about it later as well. So there was a case in which an organization in Dehradun, they wrote a letter to the Supreme Court that due to illegal excessive mining of limestone, there are frequent landslides. And just by using that letter, research of data or court cases, Supreme Court used that letter to set up a commission to look into this illegal mining and put a stop to it. That is the significance of judicial activism. Justice accessible to the marginalized. So when locus standi gets diluted, a third party can approach the court on behalf of these marginalized section and give them justice. However, a negative fallout is judicial overreach. What is judicial overreach? In Indian Constitution, we have a concept of separation of power. I have made a video on separation of power. You can watch it if you don't know what it is. But in very short, the three wings of government, that is the executive, legislative and judiciary, have their own domain and they should not step into the domain of other. In judicial overreach, the judiciary encroaches upon upon the domain of the executive. So, you would have seen recently the Allahabad High Court ordered installation of certain capacity of oxygen cylinder, number of beds in hospitals and all these things. But this is a matter of policy, and policy is under government. The court can direct the government to ensure that right to health to everyone is given, but it cannot tell government exactly what to do. Similarly, in case of the alcohol ban on highways, the ban is good or bad is not the concern here. The concern is it should have been done by the judiciary. It should have been done by the government. The judiciary should have asked the government to look into the issue, and if government feels there's sufficient merit to it, they could have done it. So this is what judicial overreach, and this is one of the negative fallout of PIL. Another is PIL has made court another arena for political debates. So one party goes to the court against any law passed by another party which is in power, and then the matter, instead of ensuring that public interest is upheld, it's just basically debate between two political parties, debate between two political ideologies. So, and this has in turn led to some important PILs not being taken up and inordinate delays in courts. So these are the major impact of PIL on the Indian society and Indian judiciary. Now let's look at some of the important cases. So in exam, if you get a question related to PIL, so you need to know what is PIL, which has been covered. You need to know its legal position, which has been covered, which article it flows through, what is allowed in PIL and what is not allowed. Third, it can ask its impact. So I've discussed it in quite detail. And when you are writing the answer, it's good to have some examples. So these are some very important PIL cases. MC Mehta case. So this is an environment case, or in this case, it was related to pollution caused by the industries, and the Supreme Court shut down a lot of industries and made them to comply with the environmental regulation, and they were allowed to open only after that. Bandhua Mukti Morcha case was against bonded labor. In this, Supreme Court said that the onus is on the company to prove that the case of forced labor is not bonded labor. So thus, a benefit was given to the laborers over the company in this case. Now, the rural litigation and entitlement case is a case I was referring to about limestone quarrying in Dehradun, where just by a letter sent to the Supreme Court, this case was taken up and relief was provided. And lastly is the Vishaka case, where Supreme Court gave the guidelines against sexual harassment at workplace. So these are some major positive cases related to PIL. Now, there are some negative cases as well. By negative, I mean where the court rejected the PIL. And most recently itself, you'd have heard Juhi Chawla filed a case in Supreme Court regarding the ill effects of 5G. And the court dismissed her petition and imposed a fine. I think the fine was of 20 lakhs. Similarly, the case against the government regarding the Central Vista project was also rejected and a fine was imposed. So thus, if someone is filing frivolous PIL or filing PIL for vested interest, the court can reject the PIL, or the court can also impose fine on the person. So every year there's lots of PIL filed, and Supreme Court has a dedicated division to go through them and then those matters which by those divisions are considered to be a matter of genuine public interest are forwarded to the bench. So that is all about PIL.